Okay, good evening to everyone. Maybe Louis can display the PowerPoint for the mindfulness. So we've already covered 2 out of the 5 qualities. So the first quality is faith, second quality is energy, third quality is mindfulness, which we are talking today. Fourth quality is concentration, and the fifth quality is wisdom. So I think in the first or second lesson, we've slightly covered the definition on mindfulness. So there are 2 aspects in this Indriya Vibhanga Sutta, the analysis of the qualities. Mindfulness is sort of defined in the secular and spiritual terms. So in terms of mundane aspect, the Buddha mentioned if a person can remember what is being done and said long ago, and is very meticulous, very precise in what they're doing, that is one kind of mindfulness. And later on, it's mentioned the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which we'll be covering today. So I mentioned there are 2 types of mindfulness covered in the analysis because being meticulous and having a good memory is considered a mundane kind of mindfulness, which may or may not lead you to liberation. It may not lead you to liberation. So I give a few case studies. Even in the Buddha's time, the Buddha's disciple, this Venerable Ananda. Venerable Ananda is foremost in memory. Foremost in memory. So if a person like Venerable Ananda is able to remember everything the Buddha taught, everything the Buddha said, then this Venerable Ananda is a bit like the tape recorder. He's able to remember everything the Buddha said. And he's the last disciple to reach enlightenment. The last disciple to reach enlightenment, being the foremost in memory. Right? So this is one of the case studies. And the opposite is also true for this Venerable Chula Pantaka. So there's a monk who is mentally or intellectually challenged. He has very poor memory. So according to the story, he cannot remember more than 1 stanza. So like earlier on, we did the chant, I go to the Buddha for refuge. Imagine this is 1 line. When he want to memorize another line, I go to the Dhamma for refuge. He forgotten the first line. He forgotten about going to the Buddha for refuge. So he's kind of hopeless in memorization. Right? So being poor in memory, he also reached enlightenment. So the story goes that he's ordained because he was inspired by his elder brother. His elder brother, on the other hand, is very smart. He's able to memorize the teachings. So he's in a company of monks which specialize in recitation. So they need to keep on repeating the teachings they've heard before. So this Venerable Chula Pandaka is unable to fit in with the community because he's unable to memorize the chant. So he was invited to leave the monastery because he's unable to follow the group. So as he was outside the monastery, he was sort of crying. He was very upset. And the Buddha was happened to walk past and inquired from Venerable Chula Pandaka what happened. And Venerable Chula Pandaka told the Buddha about the incident, about him being invited out of the monastery and is unable to memorize lots of teachings. So the Buddha asked him to come to his kuti, which is come to his hut. And the Buddha gave him a personal assignment. Right? So the Buddha gave him a white piece of cloth and asked this Venerable Chula Pandaka, are you able to just recall 1 word? You don't have to recall lengthy scriptures. So Venerable Chula Pandaka is like, okay, 1 word, yes, no problem. So the 1 word is white, the color white. So this Chula Pandaka said, okay, no problem, white, because the cloth is white. So the Buddha instructed him to clean something. So as was cleaning and cleaning and cleaning, he need to turn over the cloth because the cloth will get dirty. So as he turned over, he realized the truth. Yeah, he got enlightened, or he got semi-enlightened because he saw impermanence. From a white cloth becomes a dirty cloth, and he realized impermanence. He saw the truth, and the Buddha is able to give him further instructions until he reached full enlightenment. Yeah, so even a person who has very poor memory, poor faculties in terms of memory, is able to reach enlightenment. Yeah? So this is two of the opposite kind of case studies. And with regard to meticulousness, that means your precision and carefulness. Being careful and precise does not necessarily mean one is spiritually mindful. So a person can be very precise, let's say the Olympic Games and those doing gymnastics. They do lots of somersaults and flipping and do all kinds of stunts. They jump and twirl and whatever not. And they need to land properly. If they do not land properly, they will get injured. They'll fall down. Not only that, their scores will also be badly affected. That being the case, I'm not sure, have you seen such examples in Olympic shows? I remember I saw this particular group. They did all their routine perfectly. They all did all the backflips, the somersaults, and everything well executed. And when the judges announced a score, they lost to another team by 0.1 point. 0.1 point. So they won second place. Right? Being even so precise, they won second place and they cried because they didn't win. So they were very upset, they cried. Right? So that is being very meticulous, very precise. So being precise doesn't lead you to detachment. Being precise or having good memory doesn't necessarily lead to detachment. So these are the few case studies which I kind of cited. But in any case, it's still good to be precise in your livelihood, in your daily life, to prevent accidents, to prevent yourself from getting into trouble. You cannot recall certain events, certain program, you miss your appointment, right? So it's good to have some good memory, but not to the extremes like of being a savant. Yeah, I'm not sure you heard of some rare cases, extraordinary people with photographic memory, right? It could be born with these things. Some people, they are savants due to maybe autism and or maybe some accident, they have some concussion in their head or struck by lightning and they become a savant. It's a very rare case. So those people have special gifts, photographic memory. They're able to name the particular day of the week when you just give them a random year and a random date, and they can tell you which day is it, a Tuesday or Monday, and the kind of stuff. So they have very unique kind of abilities. So being a servant again is a good skill, but whether it leads to liberation is another thing. So today we'll now cover more on the spiritual, the transcendental kind of mindfulness, and it is normally defined in this sutta, Mahasatipatthana Sutta, the great discourse on the four foundations of mindfulness. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so because this sutta is translated by Ajahn Thanisaro, so some of the terms may seem new, to some people. They are not sort of frequently used by other translators. So I'll kind of introduce to you later. So this is the opening slide, the opening segment of the sutta. Most of the suttas will start off with, thus have I heard or I have heard by Venerable Ananda. He's recalling what the Buddha taught, that on one occasion, the Blessed One was staying in the Kuru country, and the town Kurus called Kamasadhamma. There the Blessed One addressed the monks. Monks, Lord, the monks replied. Okay, so basically the Buddha or the Buddha's audience at the time were monks. So even though the audience were monks, I believe the practice is still applicable to laypersons who want to be serious in a practice or seek kind of detachment. Okay, next. Okay, so this is the objective of mindfulness or objective of right mindfulness. The Blessed One said this. This is the direct path for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and distress, for the attainment of the right method, and for the realization of unbinding. In other words, the 4 frames of reference, which 4? So the 4 frames of reference here is actually the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So Ajahn Thanissaro translated it as 4 frames of reference. So it might sound strange to those who are first time looking at these translations. Can you go back to the previous slide? Okay, so the objective here is to overcome sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, right? We talk about Buddhism, the 4 Noble Truths. So the 3rd Noble Truth talks about overcoming of craving and suffering. And the 4th Noble Truth talks about the path leading to the end of suffering. So this right mindfulness here is actually the method, the path leading to this end of suffering. Right? So if mindfulness can lead you to being upset and cry, like the example I gave of the Olympic Games, then that is not the right kind of mindfulness. So it just stops at being the circular mindfulness. So nowadays, we have a lot of courses, a lot of these circular mindfulness courses, very popularized now. It's a kind of booming industry. So I'm not sure how deep they teach this mindfulness, but in most cases, or rather the original history of these circular mindfulness workshops started off probably from the Burmese traditions. The Burmese started the Vipassana movement, the insight meditation movements, and the Westerners kind of borrowed some of the techniques and they removed all the spiritual aspects. That means they won't contemplate things to make you realize unbinding. So later on, we'll talk a lot on impermanence. So those courses will not emphasize on impermanence because they want you to still have the drive and desire to work and make more money for your company. So you cannot afford to be desireless, because if you're desireless, you affect the economy. So those workshops won't cater fully to the spiritual part. It's more like, okay, make you calm, make you relax, control the emotions, then you can perform better. So that is the function of these circular mindfulness workshops. So in any case, this is the original mindfulness taught in Buddhism, the complete kind of course. So hopefully I can cover everything maybe by this lesson or next lesson. Okay, next slide. Okay, so these are the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So I'll just briefly read through. There's a case where a monk remains focused on the body, in and of itself, ardent, alert, mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. Right, so the key point here is putting aside greed and distress. So you need to reduce greed or overcome greed, which is in line with the 4 Noble Truths. Then the second is the same, mindfulness of feeling, the same. You can replace the word body with feeling, so it's the repetition. Then the third point is the mind, or some call it the mind states, mental states. And the fourth one, mental qualities. Some translate as phenomenon, some translate as Dhamma. So the Pali word The first one is Kayanusati, mindfulness of the body. Second one is Vedananusati. The third one is Chittanusati. And the fourth one is Dhammanusati. So the Dhamma here is not the 6 qualities of the Dhamma which we sort of recited earlier on in the chanting slides. This Dhamma is phenomenon, right? So it can also, like Ajahn Jeff, he translates as mental qualities. Okay, the same thing, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. So these are the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Mindful of the body, feelings, mind, and mental qualities. It's not about mindful of, okay, how much money you have in the bank, what's the weather today, mindful of the news, mindful of the politics. So that is not the kind of mindfulness we are looking at, but these 4. Okay, next. Okay, so the first one, mindfulness of the body, has 6 points, 6 aspects. So the first point is breath, second point is your 4 postures, the third one is all your activities, the fourth one is impurities of the body, the fifth one is the 4 elements, and the sixth one is the 9 stages of bodily decomposition, which you can look in the picture here. 9 stages of body decomposition. So you see the monk sitting there and sort of looking at the sort of corpses, right? Or the stages of decomposition. So nowadays, probably it's kind of hard to practice here in Singapore. You probably won't have a chance to look at corpses like decomposing. So nowadays, the newer or more popular alternative is cemetery meditations. Cemetery meditations. But cemetery meditations, the bodies are already underground. You cannot see the bodies decomposing like here. So there is a function or there is a purpose of looking at these bodies decomposing to learn to detach from the body. But in any case, we'll just go through these 6 pointers. Let's move on to the first one, the breath. Okay, so the more complete sutta on the breath is in the Anapanasati Sutta. So whereas in this Mahasatipatthana Sutta, the breath only covers the first quadrant. So the total breath meditation has 16 steps. 16 steps, 1-6. So in this Mahasatipatthana Sutta, it only kind of gives 4 steps, the first 4 steps. So never mind, I'll just read through. There is the case where a monk, having gone to the wilderness, to the shade of a tree, or to an empty building. So the first point talks about the venue, right? So if a person wants to specialize breath meditation, ideally they should go to a quiet environment. Quiet environment. And what kind of posture should you have? Sits down, folding his legs crosswise, holding his body erect and setting mindfulness to the fore. Always mindful he breathes in, mindful he breathes out. So breath meditation can be done usually when you are stationary, ideally when you are seated. Right? So some people only learn one kind of meditation. So they only sit and watch the breath. Then after they finish their meditation session, they get up only. Then they tell you they cannot meditate anymore because they never learn other technique. So breath only one technique, only one particular condition when you are still and seated. Okay, so next. So these are the 4 steps being mentioned here, which is quite simple, not the complete set. Okay, so the first step, breathing in long, he discerns, I am breathing in long. Or breathing out long, he discerns, I am breathing out long. So the first one is in breath long, then out breath long. And the second one, or breathing in short, he discerns, I am breathing in short. Or breathing out short, he discerns, I am breathing out short. So it can be. So basically, the first 2 steps talk about either a long breath or a short breath. Okay, then the third one, he trains himself. I will breathe in sensitive to the entire body. He trains himself, I will breathe out, sensitive to the entire body. Okay, so I will just briefly talk about the first 3 points. Okay, because words itself is one thing. Words itself is one thing. Interpretation is another thing. Right? So that's why a lot of times in many schools they talk about oral transmission. Oral transmission. You need to transmit the technique, the meditation technique. So probably in Theravada Buddhist history, a lot of these meditation movements started maybe in the late 1700s or in the 1800s. Yeah. So in between, I do not know what happened to the meditation community. A lot of things being lost. Dhamma is being degenerated. People end up doing more ceremonies and rituals. They forget about meditation. So in the 1800s, then this mindfulness or vipassana movement start to kick in. So every system after that will interpret these instructions differently. So like things like breathe in long, breathe out long, some particular system will interpret as you have to deliberately control your breathing. So there's a particular school when breathe in, breathe out, you need to really breathe in and breathe out hard. Breathe in and breathe out hard. You need to do that. Yeah. So if you don't make noise, then they'll take it as you're sleeping. So that is one particular system. So there are so many interpretations. So like the one that I'm doing doesn't have to control the breathing. Basically, it's based on your natural reflex action. Okay, so for the third point, he trains himself. I breathe in, sensitive to the entire body. Breathe out, sensitive to the entire body. So again, there's so many different interpretations of entire body. So some you treat entire body literally as the entire body from head to toe, entire body. Maybe one example is the Thai tradition, this Ajahn Lee. He sort of invented his own version where you need to feel the breath energy and sort of exiting your toes and fingers and stuff like that. So that is one style. Some will interpret the breath body as the area of attention where you feel the in and out breathing. So if a person feel the breath below the nostril, then that will be that breath body. It will be just that area. If a person feel the breath at the abdomen, then that will be their breath body. Yeah? So different schools will have different interpretation with this body. Okay, then the fourth one, he trains himself. I will breathe in, calming bodily fabrications. He trains himself. I will breathe out, calming bodily fabrications. I think the slide is like cut off halfway, but anyway, never mind. So the whole idea is you need to calm down the body so that you will not be distracted by the body. Because the body will have lots of, I would say, distraction, disturbances. Right? So the whole idea, if a person, depending on what they're gearing, if they are gearing towards samatha meditation, that means gearing towards concentration, they shouldn't be distracted by the senses. So earlier on, or in the previous sessions, we covered on concentration, to be withdrawn from the senses. So if let's say a person sit down for a while, a bit affected, here pain, there itchy, there itchy, that kind of stuff, then a bit hard to reach concentration. So you need to calm down bodily fabrication. That means you need to watch the breath until all distractions, you kind of like push it away. So that is towards the samatha route. And for vipassana route, vipassana means insight or wisdom, which we'll cover here soon. Next slide. So this is the insight. So basically the four foundation of mindfulness is mainly on insight, on wisdom. Even talk about purification of the mind to overcome suffering. This entire scripture talks about this ending of suffering. And the focus is in this particular slide. And you'll see this many, many times. It's like music. You have like a verse and you have a chorus, you have a verse and you have the chorus again. So basically this repetitive paragraph is like a chorus. It keeps repeating over and over again. That shows that it is important. Okay, so I'll just briefly read through the first 3 points. In this way, he remains focused internally on the body in and of itself, or externally on the body in and of itself, or both internally and externally on the body in and of itself. So again, this term very interesting, internally and externally. So there are a few interpretations. Internally could be your thoughts inside the mind. So that's internally. Externally would be your flesh body. That is one interpretation, internally and externally. Or internally would mean, another interpretation would be, internally is your own body. Externally is other people's body. So when we go through the different foundation of mindfulness, you may find the definition will start to make more sense in the both interpretation. Okay, so never mind. Now you take it, your breath. You cannot feel outside people's breath, right? Never mind. You just take it. One is in the mind. You contemplate in the mind. One is externally. Okay. Then the second point. He remains focused on the phenomenon of origination with regard to the body, on the phenomenon of passing away with regard to the body, or on the phenomenon of origination and passing away with regard to the body. So this is actually the main focus, mindful of impermanence. So a lot of people don't teach this, especially those mindfulness workshops. They don't teach impermanence, and because this will create this passion. In fact, the Anapanasati Sutta, the discourse on the mindfulness of breathing, the last 4 steps, earlier on I mentioned there are 16 steps, 1-6. The last 4 steps will mention this, mindful of this impermanence, arising and passing. So this is the crucial step, the most important step. If you have not reached this, then probably you haven't reached the objective. Okay, then the third point, or his mindfulness that there is a body, is maintained to the extent of knowledge and remembrance. And he remains independent, unsustained by not clinging to anything in the world. This is how a monk remains focused on the body in and of itself. So a person need to do step number 2 first. Ideally, they watch impermanence and practice detachment, detach, until nothing to detach. If a person is able to reach a state of mind where there is no arising and passing, then they just need to be mindful of that. So that's the meaning of the third paragraph. It has to have this non-clinging, non-clinging. So a lot of beginners, when they watch this mindfulness, especially the last step, they tell you straight away, be aware of your awareness, or know your pure awareness. If a person can do this straight away, means they're enlightened already. So a person can't do that. Normally for beginners, you can't stay with the pure awareness straight away. That is more like the final step. It's like a person want to make a furniture, like starting from the very raw step, like chopping from the wood. You need to chop the wood first, then you have to do filing, cutting, sawing, filing, and eventually polishing and painting. So the last step is painting, yeah? So imagine a person straight away tell you, you don't chop the wood, you straight away paint. You can't get the furniture. So this is the steps involved, right? So if a person just straight away want to be mindful and aware of their awareness, you can't get the non-clinging state of mind. You need to be mindful of impermanence first, right? And before impermanence, you need to do more things. So that's why there are 16 steps of the breath meditation. You need to do something to appease your body and feelings. And that's why in my routine, we use loving kindness. You make peace with the breath, you make peace with the feelings. And once the mind is able to calm down, then you can reflect on impermanence. So there are various conditions involved, and once all the conditions are fulfilled, then you can reach this state of non-clinging. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this one is the 4 postures. So earlier on, the breath meditation is only in the sitting posture, right? So some people will be like, after they get up, then they tell you, I can't meditate anymore. Or people will tell you, I have no time to meditate. So once you go through this lesson, you have no excuse to say I have no time to meditate. Okay, so furthermore, when walking, the monk discerns, I am walking. When standing, he discerns, I am standing. When sitting, he discerns, I am sitting. When lying down, he discerns, I am lying down. Or however his body is disposed, that is how he discerns it. So all postures a person need to be mindful. Mindful of what? So some people will tell you, okay, when you walk, you know. When you sit, you know. When you stand, you know. Know what? So the next slide. Know this. Yeah, you have a person have to know this impermanence. Okay, so I'll read through again. This is the same chorus. In this way, he remains focused internally on the body in and of itself, or externally on the body in and of itself, or both internally and externally on the body in and of itself. So again, got 2 interpretations. Internally could be what's in your mind, what you visualize in your mind, or externally is your physical body. Or the second interpretation would be internally would be your own body, externally is someone else's body. So these are the 2 kinds of interpretations. Or he remains focused on the phenomenon of origination with regard to the body, on the phenomenon of passing away with regard to the body, or on the phenomenon of origination and passing away with regard to the body. So this is on impermanence. So a person, whatever they do when they're walking, you need to be aware of impermanence. So some schools of Vipassana, when they do the walking meditation, they need to walk slowly. They need to observe the rising, and the falling, and whatever not. So yeah, quite in line with this objective. The third one, or his mindfulness that there is a body is maintained to the extent of knowledge and remembrance, and remains independent, unsustained by, not clinging to anything in the world. That is how a monk remains focused on the body in and of itself. So a person needs to be mindful of impermanence all the time. Even when sitting, they're standing, they're moving around, and so on and so forth. So when you're moving around, you may not necessarily be aware of your breath. You can't be aware of your breath all the time. Sometimes you need to think, sometimes you need to plan, you need to do activities. So this is where we move on to the next slide. All your activities. So this is basically everything you do. Furthermore, when going forward and returning, he makes himself fully alert. When looking toward, looking away, when bending, extending your limbs, when carrying your items, right? When eating, drinking, chewing, savoring, urinating, defecating, walking, standing, right? All this the same thing as the previous one. Falling asleep, walking, waking up, talking, and remaining silent. He makes himself fully alert. Okay, so as long as you are still awake, you need to be mindful of impermanence. So that's the key. So some people, when they teach this mindfulness, especially this eating, drinking, chewing, and savoring, they tell you mindfulness when you eat and drink, you have to know and enjoy the taste. When you go for sightseeing, go for tour, you have to enjoy the sights. They never teach you mindful of impermanence. So that is not the real right mindfulness. So that is basically enjoying your senses. So which is very contrary to the Buddhist teaching. So in fact, we have this food reflection. When you eat, you have to be mindful that whatever you eat is not for enjoyment, not for pleasure, not for enjoyment. It's to just give you strength to practice. not to beautify the body. So, what is the real practice then? Right? Let's move to the next slide. So, that being said, if a person fall asleep, you need to sleep. And when you sleep that time, you be mindful all the way until you KO, you become unconscious. So when you fall asleep, that doesn't count. Only when you start to be awake, when you wake up, then you practice this right mindfulness. Okay, so this is the key objective when practicing mindfulness. In this way, he remains focused internally on the body in and of itself, or externally on the body in and of itself, or both internally and externally on the body in and of itself. So this one is got to do with internal, external. Some people may want to look at other people's body because as long as there's movement, there is impermanence. Or he remains focused on the phenomenon of origination with regard to the body, on the phenomenon of passing away with regard to the body, or on the phenomenon of origination and passing away with regard to the body. So this is the key emphasis on mindfulness of this arising and passing away. Or is mindfulness that there is a body is maintained to the extent of knowledge and remembrance. And he remains independent, unsustained by not clinging to anything in the world. This is how a monk remains focused on the body in and of itself. All right, so we covered a few, or rather 3 points already. Any questions so far? Is it too much at the moment? If not, I carry on. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this one talks about impurities of the body. So impurities of the body is basically your human biology and anatomy. So I'll just read through. Furthermore, just as if a sack with openings at both ends were full of various kinds of grain, wheat, rice, mung beans, kidney beans, sesame seeds, husked rice, and a man with good eyesight pouring it out were to reflect. This is wheat, this is rice, these are mung beans, these are kidney beans, these are sesame seeds, this is husk rice. In the same way, a monk reflects on this very body from the soles of the feet on up, from the crown of the head on down, surrounded by skin and full of various kinds of unclean things. So the Buddha is giving analogy at first, like the different parts of the body akin to the different types of grain and beans. So the different grains and beans will look differently. They have different shape, different color. So a person with good eyesight, when they look at these grains and beans, are able to differentiate them. So likewise, when a person contemplate on this particular meditation, impurities of the body meditation, they are supposed to separate out the different parts of the body. Okay, in this body there are, next slide. Okay, so these are the 32 parts of the body. So I don't think I need to read through them. You can read through yourself. So you have from the hairs all the way to the internal organs. That means external parts, you have the hairs, nails, teeth, skin, and deeper down your flesh and the bones and all the internal organs. So these are the 32 parts of the body. Why 32? Probably in the past, that is their technology. Medical technology was not too advanced like now. Nowadays, we have like, you can think of the cells and the DNA and stuff like that. So in the past, we have these 32 parts of the body. And knowing these various parts of the body alone is not good enough. So most of the meditation system nowadays is to ask you to visualize these parts of the body. Visualize these parts of the body. How many of you are familiar with all the parts of the body? Have you seen all the parts of your own body before? Never, right? So this reminds me of a joke. It's a viral email I received quite long ago. So it talks about a Christian and an atheist. So the atheist is actually the school science teacher. So the science teacher will tell the student, anything you can observe, anything you can see, then that's evidence, it's real. Anything you cannot see, then that's not real. So that was his first statement. Then he made a remark. Then he said, he mentioned that God is not real because you cannot see God, right? So there's this Christian student maybe got offended. So he raised his hand and asked his teacher, teacher, can you see your brain? So the teacher said, no, he cannot see his own brain. Or have you seen your own brain before? No, he haven't seen his own brain before. And does that mean you have no brain? So that's the sort of the meme. So anyway, most of us have not seen all our internal parts before, so it's kind of hard or demanding to expect everybody to meditate all these parts of the body. Moreover, the monks, all the monks actually, when we go through our ordination ceremony, our preceptor will just give us the external parts of the body to contemplate, and the hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. That's all. So the preceptor will never ask us to think of your internal organs, your heart, your brain, your kidney, and so on. Never. So if a monk were to be expected to just think of the external parts, what more of a layperson, right? So if a layperson, if you look at the mirror every day, you'll probably be more familiar with the external parts. Don't have to look at the mirror, just look at your own two eyes now, right? With your own, look at your hand, look at your body. So with your own physical eyes, so these are the parts of the body you're more familiar with, the external parts of the body. So if we have some time, then we can do this later on. Huh? Okay. And for the rest of the parts of the body, maybe certain occupations, then you might be able to see all these parts. Maybe a butcher, undertaker, those doing autopsy, surgeon, doctors. So they'll be very familiar with all the internal parts of the body. So being said, when they're so familiar with all the parts of the body, does that make them enlightened? Right? If a person is very skilled with all the parts of the body, a person still can get attached. When a person see, let's say the internal parts, let's say the ugly parts, let's say the flesh, let's say you cut yourself, you see some blood or some whatever it is, your saliva or mucus, maybe or even your feces. If anything that is unpleasant, a person will develop aversion. Aversion. And if any part that you see that looks nice, let's say you go to the hair salon, right? Then you make your hair very nice. So you think of a hair. Wow, I like this fashion so much. And a person may develop greed. A person may develop greed. So contemplating parts of the body require impermanence. If not, you'll get this attachment, either greed or aversion. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so this is the emphasis. In this way, he remains focused internally on the body in and of itself, or externally on the body in and of itself. Okay, so again, the two interpretation internally, that means you can be thinking of it. Externally would be your own physical body. But in this case, if you really want to know all the parts of the body, then the external parts of the body would be another person's body. Another person's body. Let's say in Buddhist countries like Thailand or any Buddhist country, some hospitals will offer front row seats of autopsies to monks. So monks will sit in front of the operating theater and watch autopsies being done. So the surgeon or whoever medical practitioner will cut up the body, and the monks will have this first-hand kind of view of the parts of the body. Right. So there is mindful external parts of the body. Or he remains focused on the phenomenon of origination with regard to the body, on the phenomenon of passing away with regard to the body, or on the phenomenon of origination and passing away with regard to the body. So this is very important to reflect on impermanence. Because if you do not observe or watch impermanence, you cling on to any emotion, even aversion, you cling on. So there's a case, there is particular sutta, this Vesali Sutta. There's a group of monks in the Buddha's time that were practicing these impurities of the body meditation. And they did not receive clear instructions from the Buddha. They just heard that the Buddha praised this meditation, the Buddha praised contemplating 32 parts of the body, because there are monks who got enlightened contemplating on these 32 parts of the body. So this group of monks probably not very well instructed. They are very over enthusiastic on reflecting on the 32 parts of the body. So what they did is they overdid it. They contemplate on the body until they become full of aversion to the body. There's so much hatred to the body until they committed suicide. So there's a group of monks in this Vesali that committed suicide due to practicing this meditation. Right? So again, meditation is not necessarily safe. Right? You need to have clear instruction. So in this case, there is an emphasis on impermanence. You need to reflect impermanence, and to balance things out, ideally you can add in loving kindness. Loving kindness is to reduce or overcome aversion. So you can use that. Aversion. So in the Thai chanting, we have these 4 guardians of meditation, 4 guardians of insight. Buddhanusati, mindfulness on the Buddha to a right view. Metta, loving kindness. Asupa, which is these impurities of the body. Maranasati, mindfulness of death, which is on impermanence. So later on, we might spend some time to practice a bit on this. If not, it will be just all theory and no practice. Okay, then the third point, or his mindfulness that there is a body, is maintained to the extent of knowledge and remembrance, and remains independent, unsustained by, not clinging to anything in the world. This is how a monk remains focused on the body in and of itself. Right. So this is the practice of these impurities of the body. So there is another sutta which the Buddha talks about these 5 faculties with regard to these impurities of the body meditation. It's called the Asubha Sutta. So the Buddha is mentioning the painful path of practice versus pleasant path of practice. So the Buddha mentioned that those who are practicing these impurities of the body meditation is practicing the unpleasant path of practice, because they have to look at all the disgusting parts of the body. So it is an unpleasant path of practice. But whether they reach enlightenment fast or slow depends on their 5 qualities, their 5 faculties. The faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. Depends on these 5 faculties. And the other end of the spectrum, what is the pleasant path of practice? Then the Buddha mentioned, it was comparing impurities of the body meditation practitioners versus jhana practitioners. So jhana is actually right concentration. So the Buddha is like implying that impurities of the body meditation cannot lead to jhanas. So for those who are practicing the pleasant path of practice, these jhanas also can reach enlightenment fast or slow, depending on their 5 faculties. Right? This faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. So this is the Asubha Sutta, which you can check for yourself. So this practice is painful because a person cannot reach concentration. When a person practices these impurities of body meditation, they need to keep reflecting on the parts of the body. So nowadays, there are practitioners that try to enter concentration with impurities of the body. Like, for example, they try to stare at the bones for a long, long time or visualize one part of the bone for a very, very long time. So that one may not lead to jhanas. So it's actually developing another kind of samadhi, so which we'll cover in probably the next few lessons on the concentration faculty. Okay, next slide. So next is the four elements. So these are the earth, fire, wind, water elements. Furthermore, just as a skilled butcher or his apprentice, having killed a cow, would sit at the crossroads cutting it up into pieces, the monk contemplates this very body, however it stands, however it is disposed in terms of properties. So there are other kinds of meditation which doesn't have to be done sitting. So like in this case, a person cultivate the impurities of the body meditation, or these four elements, it can be done in any posture. So earlier on when we talk about you mindfulness of all activities, how to be mindful of all activities, you can combine actually. You can combine with these four elements. You can combine with other meditation objects such as impurities of the body meditation. You can combine with mindfulness of the Buddha, mindfulness of Dhamma, Sangha. So there are many other meditation objects which can actually be done multitasking. Things like loving kindness, four sublime states. It can be done in all activities. Okay, so I'll just read through. In this body, there is the earth property. Second, the liquid property. Third, the fire property. And fourth, the wind property. So these are the four elements. So earlier on, talking about what the skilled butcher killing the cow. So this is an analogy, trying to identify the different parts or different limbs or the flesh of the cow or the organs of the cow. So you need to identify the different elements. Okay, next slide. Okay, so there are different interpretations of these four elements. So some people will say the earth element is basically, or the four elements is almost the same as the impurities of the body meditation. So the earth element represents anything hard or soft. So things like anything solid in the body would be the earth element, like your hair, your skin, your flesh, your bones, your organs, and so on. So these are the earth elements. The water element would be the liquid, like your blood, your sweat, your saliva, and your urine, and so on. So this is the liquid. But then the problem comes with the heat element, heat and the wind element. So you cannot see it with your naked eye. You cannot see the fire property. You cannot see the heat element unless you have heat vision. Then it's a different thing. So unless you're like the predator in the movie, you can see people in terms of red or green color, then it's a different story. But most people can't have heat vision. So we take these four elements as not a visualization kind of meditation. So if you want to practice the four elements fully, the four elements is more of sensations. So the earth element represents any hard or soft sensation. So if you are sitting right now, anything hard or any solid or tense sensation, anything hard, anything solid, that will be the earth element. And any heat, any hot or cold sensation, that will be the fire element. Any kind of movement, fast or slow movements, would be the wind element. And the water element would be the moist or dry sensation, humid or dry. So these are the way to practice the four elements in the complete manner. So if a person, let's say they watch the breath, they inhale, exhale, there will be the four elements. When you breathe in, there's heat, there's movement. So the movement is the wind element. something contact with your skin, so something that's hard, so there's the earth element, right? So all the four elements are there. So when you are standing or walking, anything hard touching the ground, so that's the earth element. Any movement, that's the wind element. So that's universal. So the four elements is very universal, can be practiced in like all scenarios or most scenarios. In fact, we believe the universe is made of these four elements, right? So that is the idea behind it. Okay, then the next slide. Yeah, so with regard to the chorus of the previous slide, the four elements need to be accompanied with the reflection of impermanence. Huh? Okay, now next one is this 9 stages of bodily decomposition. So earlier on, you have looked at the picture. So I'll just read through the 9 since you have a visual idea already. Furthermore, as if he were to see a corpse cast away in a charnel ground. So in India, there is a practice of a charnel ground. That means some people may not have an opportunity to get cremated. So they have a special place designated to dump corpses. So it's called a charnel ground. And yogis are sort of encouraged to like go to the charnel ground, to sit at the charnel ground and observe these various stages of decomposition. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 3 days dead, bloated, livid, and festering. He applies it to this very body. This body too, such is its nature, such is its future, such its unavoidable fate. So this is one clear example of internally and externally. So externally would be the dead corpse, and internally would be your own body. So if you look at a corpse sort of decomposing, the whole idea is to reflect, okay, one day my body will also be like that. So the whole idea is not to sort of, some people may have a wrong impression. Hey, why you go to look at dead corpses for what? Huh? People think you're crazy. So no, the idea is to practice detachment. Okay, then number 2, or again, as if he were to see a corpse cast away in a charnel ground, picked at by crows, vultures, and hawks, by dogs, hyenas, and various other creatures. So the second step would include other animals feeding on the corpse already. And the third one, a skeleton smeared with flesh and blood connected with tendons. So the flesh is sort of, some of the flesh is gone until you can see the skeleton. And the fourth one, a fleshless skeleton smeared with blood connected with tendons. So the fourth one is basically more or less eaten, like quite clean already. And the fifth one, a skeleton without flesh or blood connected with tendons. And the sixth one, bones detached from their tendons, scattered in all directions. Here a hand bone, there a foot bone, and here a shin bone, there a thigh bone, there a hip bone, there a backbone, here a rib bone, there a breastbone, here a shoulder bone, there a neck bone, jaw bone, tooth, and so on. Yeah. So this is basically the bones which are all scattered all over. And 7, the bones whitened somewhat like the color of shells. So our bones are initially not white. So like our teeth is not meant to be white. It's meant to be like off yellow or something. So some people like to whiten their teeth. So you don't have to whiten actually. Our bones are naturally slightly off yellowish, off white. Piled up, number 8, piled up more than a year old. So this is number 8. It's already piled up. And number 9, decomposed into powder. He applies it to this very body, this body too. Such is its nature, such is its future. So this applies not to apply the ash to your body, no. It's you apply reflection of that image that one day your body will become powder. So from dust to dust. So this is the 9 bodily decomposition. Next slide. In this way, he remains focused internally on the body in and of itself, or externally on the body in and of itself, or both internally and externally on the body in and of itself. Or he remains focused on the phenomenon of origination with regard to the body, on the phenomenon of passing away with regard to the body, or on the phenomenon of origination and passing away with regard to the body. So it's important to be mindful of impermanence. If you do not, for 1 second, think of impermanence, the body will start, the mind will look at the body only, then start to have all kinds of thoughts. So disgusting. Or nowadays, maybe Hollywood like to come up with all those zombie apocalyptic scenario. Then you think of the dead body, the corpse, you think of zombies. Then it becomes over dramatization, no more detachment. Or is mindfulness that there is a body, is maintained to the extent of knowledge and remembrance, and he remains independent, unsustained by, not clinging to anything in the world. This is how a monk remains focused on the body in and of itself. Okay, so today I covered quite a lot in theory. So now we open the floor to a bit of Q&A before we go to some practice session. Any questions so far from the Zoom?
Bhante, I think they need, I cannot see the question in the chat. They have to open their mic and ask the question.
Or everybody fully understand?
Sorry, Bhante, I think I have a question.
Okay.
Can I ask? Okay, when you contemplate on the decomposition of the body and the 32 parts of the body, is this practice only like more suitable for those people who are very attached to their own bodies? Otherwise, like it's not a very useful methods for those who are not attached to their own bodies.
Yeah, this is a very good point. So actually, most people are usually attached to the body. So there is an exception though. So it's mentioned in one of the traditional account, maybe not in the suttas, but yeah, it's in the traditional, probably in the commentary stories. So there's this particular monk who was believed to be a jewel trader, jeweler for 500 past lives. So he's not attached to anything disgusting. He's not attached to the body part, but he's attached to jewels, anything shiny and beautiful. So he's attached to those instead. So after he became a monk, he went to this Venerable Sariputta, the right-hand man of Buddha, to receive instructions. So Venerable Sariputta asked him to contemplate on impurities of the body. So he meditate, no result. No result because to him, like no effect. So he approached Venerable Sariputta again, same issue, cannot solve the problem. So even Arahants cannot help. So he have to go to the Buddha. So this monk went to the Buddha, and the Buddha gave him, or the Buddha used his divine ability to look at this person's past life. And he realized that for 500 lifetimes, he was a jeweler. So the Buddha custom made this meditation object. He created with his mind this golden flower. So not the Zen edition. So this is the Theravada edition. The golden flower, he put on the ground, asked this monk to stare at the flower. So when he stared at the flower, somehow he's able to gain some concentration, and the Buddha is able to give him some teachings, and eventually he gained enlightenment. Yeah, so you cannot find golden kasina in the 40 meditation objects. So in the past, there's more meditation objects. Okay, so this is one case study if a person is not attached to the body. So There are many kinds of meditation subjects. Because the Buddha is not around, so you probably need to be very lucky to find a teacher to be able to identify what kind of meditation object suits you, or you need to do your own window shopping. You need to try out different styles and sort of find the one that suits you. But in any case, for my routine, I'll use a few meditation subjects. It's like having a toolbox. You have like a screwdriver, you have a hammer, you have a plier, and so on. So different situation, you can use different tools to solve the problem. You cannot solve everything with a hammer. So you need different tools. Different meditation subject will specialize in different defilements. So the impurities of the body meditation is kind of useful to overcome lust and greed. Loving kindness meditation is useful to overcome aversion, anger. And ultimately, the reflection of impermanence is to overcome this clinging. And the breath meditation is useful for a scattered mind. So we have a few meditation subjects. Yeah. Any other questions? So there's one in the chat. The words are a bit small. Can you read out?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to unmute. Okay. Hi, Bante. Is the phenomena of origination referring to birth?
Yeah, birth of the aggregates. So in this particular case, and this birth is not about seeing the actual labor from the mother's womb. No, not that kind of birth. Like if you watch the breath in and out breath, you cannot be watching the birth, the physical labor. Likewise, all these 6 things is to watch the birth as in arising, arising of the in breath, out breath, or arising and passing of these stages of decomposition, arising and passing away of different movements of the body, so on and so forth. Hopefully that clarifies.
Okay, Bante, there's no more question here.
Okay, no issues. Okay, then we have a bit of hands-on, hands-on on this mindfulness of the body. Hopefully you can put into practice, then it's kind of ingrained in the mind. If not theory, then it's like, yeah. Then becomes one in and one out. Then it's a real impermanence. Okay, so you find a comfortable posture. Make sure your back is upright and the rest of the body relaxed. Okay, then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to close our eyes, relax the whole body, and we are going to do a bit of visualization exercise. Visualization exercise. So you're going to visualize all the hairs from head to toe, all the hairs. It's like looking at a mirror, but with your eyes closed. So looking at the hairs itself has no spiritual value. There's no Dhamma value. Like I mentioned, if you just look at the hairs, if the hair is good looking, then you develop greed lah. Yeah, my hair is so nice. I like it. And then if you look at your hair and it's so messy, so ugly, I don't like this fashion. Then you develop aversion, anger. Right. So what we're going to do is apply right thought. So the first thing we're going to do is first wish the hairs well and happy. We don't straight away do impermanence because the mind may not accept. You straight think of impermanence, the hair grow and fall, grow and fall. Then you start to worry, maybe I should visit this Yunnan hair care center to take care of the hair. or my skin growing and falling, I must buy this skin product to make the skin look better. So we are not going to think of impermanence first. We need to calm down the mind, make it more objective, make it less resistant. So we first wish all the hairs well and happy. Every time we think of a patch of hair, we're going to wish it well and happy. So the phrasing we are going to use is not to wish my hair. So we exclude the I, the me, the my inside. We are going to just wish the hairs. Because ultimately we have to give up clinging. So if you have the I inside there, then it becomes possessiveness, my hair, then very hard to let go. So you remove the I from the equation, just wish the hairs well and happy. New image appear, wish the hairs well and happy, new patch of hair well and happy. So the visualization of the image is called mindfulness of the body, part of right mindfulness. And the thoughts, the labels we give, wishing the hairs well and happy, that's part of right thought, thoughts of loving kindness to overcome aversion. And the repetition, when we keep repeating, is part of right effort. We need to generate certain wholesome qualities and remove unskillful qualities and to maintain these positive qualities. So the only way to do it is repetition. So the Buddhist analogy would be like rowing a boat across to the other shore. Every time you generate the right thought, it's like rowing one time. And every time you don't generate, some people think meditation is sit there, do nothing. You sit there, do nothing, you don't roll. And what will happen is the currents of the ocean will just drag you all over the place. And you just drift all over and you won't reach your destination. And for the image, please do not over dramatize. Just think of the patch of hair. Don't need to think of what kind of shampoo you use, what kind of conditioner. Just think of the patch of hair, then just wish it well and happy. And as you keep doing it, we can observe the state of mind. Is it getting calmer or getting more agitated? Is it getting more and more tension? So this will determine how much you cling. If you do it correctly, you should get calmer. So keep on wishing the hairs well and happy. So we call this skillfully, the right method and skill. The other way to calm the mind without skill is falling asleep. So if you do nothing and fall asleep, also can make yourself calm and peaceful. That one don't require any skill at all. Okay, so the whole idea is to calm the mind until it cannot calm down any further. And we call this the baseline level, baseline emotion. It's a neutral emotion, no jhanic concentration, no insight at this point, no vipassana, no jhanas, no samatha, just a neutral emotion. So this would be the minimum requirement for insight. Minimum requirement. So you need to calm the mind first, make sure it's calm and settled. So for those who are already calm and settled, then we can move on to the next phase. We can think of impermanence of the hairs. All the hairs go through birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So we are a bit like combining these stages of body decomposition. So the hairs will grow and fall off, grow and fall off, many, many cycles. So we keep looping this image. Don't have to over dramatize. Just hairs growing and falling. You can fast forward a bit. Don't need to think of it real time. If not, it take forever. And as you keep going through this cycle, hairs growing and falling, then you observe this clinging. Are you getting more detached or more attached? Do you get more calm or more tension? If you do it correctly, you should feel happy, joyful, or peaceful. It means you're on the right track. And regardless of whatever phenomenon happening, just keep on looping the cycle, keep on reflecting on impermanence arising and passing. Hairs growing, hairs falling, hairs growing, hairs falling. And then we can ask ourselves, are these hairs truly self? So we observe this sense of self or selfishness. Is it increasing or decreasing in intensity? Is this self truly self?
这耳机有问题耶。
Okay, then we can move on to the next part of the body. Maybe those who are in the room can mute yourselves. Okay, so we're going to think of the nails, fingernails and toenails, and we're going to wish them well and happy. So wishing the nails well happy, this is the samatha phase, calming phase. And all these nails are subject to birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So this is the insight phase for wisdom to practice detachment. So we think of the nails growing and falling, many, many cycles. And as we keep looping, then we can observe this clinging or this sense of self. Is it increasing or decreasing? And then we can ask ourselves, are these nails truly self? Can you tell the nails not to go through this birth and death? So the next part of the body, we're going to think of the teeth, all the teeth inside the mouth. May they be well and happy, all the upper rows of teeth and lower rows of teeth. May they be well and happy. And all these teeth are subject to birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So you think of the teeth growing and falling, many, many cycles. So you keep looping this process many times, even though the teeth fall off the most twice only. So this is just a mental detachment exercise. Don't have to over imagine, pull out the teeth, got blood lah, very painful lah. Don't need to do that. Just teeth growing and falling, growing and falling. And as we keep looping this cycle, we can observe this sense of self, this sense of clinging. Is it increasing or decreasing? And we can ask ourselves, are these teeth truly self? Can we tell the teeth not to go through birth and death? Then we can start to think of the skin that surrounds the entire body. We're going to wish all the skin well and happy. Every patch of skin, may they be well and happy. New patch of skin, may they be well and happy. And all the skin are subject to birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So you think of the skin growing and falling, many, many cycles. And as we keep looping this process, we can observe the clinging or the sense of selfishness, sense of self. Is it increasing or decreasing? And we can ask ourselves, are the skin truly self? Can we tell the skin not to go through this birth and death? Okay, so now we can shift to this mindfulness of the breathing. But before we do that, we can further familiarize ourselves with the four element sensations. So we're going to sense the elements, sense the sensations without visualizing. So there's no need to visualize from now on, just sensing. So using our so-called nervous system of the body, we're going to feel all the sensations. So all these sensations, we let it arise naturally by themselves. You don't have to purposely generate any sensation. So everything happens real time. Okay, and whatever sensation that appear, there are usually these four general classification called the four elements. Earth represents any hard or soft sensations. Fire is any hot and cold sensations. Wind is any kind of movement, fast or slow movements. And water represents any moist or dry sensations. So it can happen anywhere at any part of the body, whatever sensation that appear the most distinctly, most strongly, you just take note of it and wish it well and happy. So the four elements are just guidelines. If you cannot identify which element, doesn't matter. Don't have to crack your brain over it. So the practice of these four elements is not to control the elements. We are not training to become an airbender. We are learning to make peace with the elements first. New sensation appear, may they be well and happy. New sensation appear, may they be well and happy. So keep on deliberately wishing them well and happy. The sensation, the evidence you don't control, but the labeling, that one you intentionally think. So all these are real-time evidence, no imagination. And then you can observe the state of mind. Is it getting calmer or getting more agitated? If the mind is getting calmer, means you're on the right track. If you're still struggling and fighting the sensations, keep on wishing them well and happy. We're not fighting with anything. Learning to make peace with whatever the universe throw at us. Whatever sensation appear, I wish them well and happy. Okay, once you are calm, we call this calming bodily fabrications. That means you are not disturbed by these elements of the body. You are at peace with them. They may appear, we are not eliminating them. They can exist, they can appear, but we do not react with greed or anger with them. So we keep on wishing them well and happy. So the breath body can be done with the entire body, or it can be done in a smaller area. So if you want, you can zoom in and choose a smaller area, let's say below the nostril, above the upper lip. There could be one possible area where you can feel the in and out breathing, or you can feel the abdomen rising and falling. So there's another possible spot. Anywhere where there's in and out breathing, any obvious movement, you can choose that spot. So once you have determined your area of attention, then you can just sort of focus on there. Just a gentle focus, no need to force or push the mind. So once you're aware of that particular area, let your in and out breathing, in and out breath be natural reflex. No need to control your breathing also. If it's long, means it's long. If it's short, means it's short. So the only thing we do is make peace with the in and out breathing. Every inhalation, wish the breath well. Exhalation, wish the breath happy. Inhale well, exhale happy. Some meditators think, using concentration on the breath means must force the mind at one area, then you try to hammer the mind down and fix the mind. No, everything needs causes and conditions. Cause, condition, and effect and result. So the causes for calming the mind is you need to apply right thought. So now we're applying thoughts of loving kindness to overcome aversion. Breathe in, wish the inhale well, exhale, wish the breath happy. If you try to fight and struggle with the mind, you get more tension, more suffering. And like last week's lesson, we find the right tuning, right tuning. So we are not exerting. The right effort here is repetition. We increase the repetition, but we are not pushing or forcing. Once you leave the mind idle only, it's an opening for the currents to drag your mind, drag your boat all over the place. So consistently row the boat, row the raft. Inhale well, exhale happy. And then the calming is more of a byproduct. Eh? You can observe how the mind calm down, how the mind settle down. So the breath body, the area of attention where you feel the in and out breathing, that's one point, that's one location, that's one kind of mind. And the settling of the mind is another location actually. It's actually the craving formations. So for those who can detect it, good for you. Those who doesn't detect, never mind. Just continue to watch your in and out breathing, wish you well and happy. It will calm down to a point where it cannot calm down any further. Or the rate of calming is like so negligible, Then we call this the stability point. The baseline emotion, same as the previous meditation object that we did. So loving kindness of a meditation object will lead you to a first kind of baseline emotion without any jhanas, no insight. Neutral emotion, neutral state of mind. And whatever you experience, no matter how calm or not calm, keep on wishing the in and out breath well and happy. Keep on rowing the boat. Because once you stop rowing, you're complacent, and then the currents will push you back to square one. And once you are quite familiar with this stated mind, then we can add impermanence. This is the minimum requirement to reflect on impermanence. So we're using the same in and out breathing. You inhale, exhale, observe the same thing, but instead of wishing it well and happy, you call it rising and falling. Or you can call it origination and passing, whichever your preference, and we can keep repeating. So if you're doing it correctly, there should be a surge of this energy faculty. We'll cover more in the future lessons on this. And there should be more peace or more joy. And the same thing, regardless of what you experience, keep on rowing the boat. Keep on reflecting on impermanence, origination, and passing. Do not experience some or unique or pleasant experience, then you stop rowing. Or you row to that particular signpost and langgar into the signpost. No, huh? Keep on heading to your objective, detachment, detachment. We know it's there, we take note of the phenomenon, but we keep rowing. Okay, so we can be mindful of this impermanence in a small area with the breath. It can be a large area like the whole body, like the 4 elements we did earlier, the whole body. And we can do it in all postures, standing, sitting, walking, lying down, in all activities. Yeah. So with that, we can gently open our eyes, formally end the session, informally still can practice mindfulness. And with that, I think we have 10 minutes to have more Q&A. Any further questions?
Bhante, maybe I ask a question.
Okay.
Okay, when we do the contemplation of the rising and falling, and then I tend to be very precise, as in, looking at it, how it get fall off. If let's say you say fast forward, then it becomes like there's no image. It's like just words. So how do I overcome that?
You mean
It just
the
become words like
you mean the
okay,
visualization?
yeah, visualization.
Okay, yeah, then you need to find the right pace where you still can sort of visualize the image. Yeah.
Then it become very slow. It will be like very slow, like how it fall off, and then how does it look like? Yeah.
Yeah, too slow also no good. Then becomes attachment. Yeah, you need to like find the moderate speed.
Okay. And the other question is, how do we actually visualize the falling off of the skin and things like that? Which I mean, we don't have that kind of experience, that kind of experience very frequent. Like, so
Yeah,
how
I
do you?
believe we rub our skin before, right? Then there are some the dead skin fall off. So that will do. Yeah, just skin,
Oh,
yeah, falling, then growing and falling. Yeah,
okay.
if you start to feel, yeah, so sayang, so painful, so wasted, yeah, then that means too slow or not enough
Mhm.
loving kindness. Because the whole idea of clinging means if there's not enough impermanence, it will lead to clinging and suffering. So
Mm,
you might need to increase the rate of impermanence.
okay. Okay, Bhante. Bhante, there's a
All right.
question
Does that
here.
answer your question?
Okay, I'll try to either
I
slow down
think
or
there's a
fast forward.
question
Yeah.
in the chat.
Yes, there's a question. Hi, Bhante. During the mindfulness session, what if I just fall asleep?
What if
Can
you
you?
fall asleep? Very good question. So we'll cover that more in detail in the future session. So we call this the hindrances. So sleepiness or this sloth and torpor is part of the 5 hindrances. Uh, it's normal. I won't say it's a good thing, but it's normal to have for everybody. Only an enlightened being can overcome this sloth and torpor. Yeah. the mind is free from this being obstructed by this tiredness. So anyway, if a person experiences tiredness, there are a few things you can do. Either you can increase the rate of impermanence, put in more effort. That's the sutta's recommendation. Put in more effort. And the next lesson will give more solutions. So currently, right now, is basically more effort lah. But if you're still very tired, means you're physically tired, then you should take a rest. Hopefully that
Bante, can
answers the question.
I stop share the slide first?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So the next question is, hi Bante, do we use the phrase, may you be well and happy, using the word you to refer to the hair, the teeth, the nails, and the skin?
Yeah, that works. Yeah.
Okay. And the next one is, Bante, what do I do if there is a sense of self? Example, I feel a sense of brain that I have not taken good enough care of my teeth, so having some problem now. And yet, when I try to wish my teeth well, I feel that I'm not being honest in that they are deteriorating anyway.
Yeah, so this is normal. We call this the survival function kind of thinking. Yeah, so in normal life, we do need to operate in this manner, but we also need to explore the alternative option. We need to have the state of detachment, state of peace. If a person is just bogged down by only just care and concern and of the body only, then you'll be emotionally caught up with all these worries. All right. So for the meditation, if a person is still worrying a lot, then go to a more loving kindness first. That's my recommendation.
Okay. The next question is, hi Bante, does contemplation of the body to help with body aches and pains?
Does it help in body aches and pains? Yes and no. Sometimes if you sit, you're more mindful of the body or body posture. You might adjust in a way that it relaxes certain muscles. It may solve certain problem, but meditation or the one we are doing is not meant to cure bodily problems. So the one that really specialize in solving problems in like Qigong or Reiki, those kind of meditation, those are really specialized in healing bodily pains. Yeah, so Buddhist meditation, at least for the Theravada part, is not designed to heal bodily pain. So even though we talk about overcoming suffering, it's more of the mental, the emotional suffering. It's not the make you immune to pain, make you. It's not a medical thing. Yeah, basically.
So Bante, sometimes when we feel there's a bodily pain, can we actually like adjust our posture? Like I sometimes I feel a guilt, like I shouldn't be adjusting my posture. I should be concentrating on meditation and then just endure with the pain.
Yeah, so this comes to whether you're paying attention to what I've taught earlier. Meditation can be done in all activities, all postures. So if a person's concept of meditation is just sitting only, then you're just creating suffering. Yeah, the whole idea is we can be mindful or we can be meditating in all postures. Whatever movement we are doing, as long as we have right reflection, even we are moving and changing to relieve the pain, that's fine. Yeah, because we cannot be Buddha statue. We cannot be seated 24 hours like the statue. So we need to move. So while moving, how do you call it in the layman's term? How to earn passive karmic income when you're doing all your normal things. So basically, it's every moment right reflection. Think of impermanence. Okay.
Yeah, Bante, there's one more question. Hi Bante, a side question. Can we request and take the 8 precepts in front of the Buddha, or it has to be done in front of monastics? Thank you.
I believe that is more of an individual option. If you prefer to take it in front of a monastic, you can do so. If you want, if you're not comfortable or there's no monastic available, then you can do it yourself. That's also fine.
Okay, there's no more question anymore.
Any more questions? Count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Sold. Okay, then we can end today's session.
Sorry.
And
Mante, sorry, I have one last question.
okay,
Okay, when you're focusing on this mindfulness on doing some certain activities, and then after that, you lost your concentration, your mindfulness on other activities. So is that the correct way?
you
Like
lost.
you focus on washing the dishes, then after that you forgot that, something you need to go and attend to as well.
Yeah, so that's why we normally say you combine with other meditation subjects. So if a person's mind run off, ideally it's good to have samatha kind of recharge first. So a person can be mindful of, let's say, chanting the Buddha's name or mindful of loving kindness. So we kind of bring the mind back. So it can be multitasking. A person can do this meditation while washing the dishes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Bhante.
And it's very normal for the mind to run, restlessness. Yeah. We'll cover that more in the future lessons.